Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new edition of the Daily Debate. In tonight's show, we're going to be following Egypt's path through strengthening its diplomatic relations with the Arab world, also the international community. This is in light of Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry actually meeting with the European foreign ministers in Brussels earlier and actually meeting today with the Arab foreign ministers in preparation for the Arab League meeting slated to be held later this month. We're also going to be focusing on the Egyptian efforts to boost the economic state here in Egypt, talking about the efforts exerted by Dr. Sahar Nasr, also talking about almost 250 or a little bit more offered by Germany to Egypt in support of the development programs here, and a focus on the small and medium-sized businesses. And joining us here in the studio to shed more light on these issues is Dr. Hassan Shafei, the chairman of the Egyptian-Romanian Business Council. We're also joined by Mr. Wael Nawwara, the political analyst. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we start our discussion tonight, let's check out this report regarding Egypt's aims to create an attractive climate for investments in light of the efforts done by the government, and we'll be right back.
Minister of Investment and International Cooperation Sahar Nasr held a meeting with a large group of investors to review their ideas on investments and legislation. During the meeting, Nasr stressed the government is working to create an investment that is attractive to both foreign and local investors, highlighting the importance of assisting local investors and solving their problems to attract more foreign investments. The meeting was attended by representatives of the Federation of Egyptian Industries, Chambers of Commerce, Egyptian Exporters Association and businessmen. Minister Nasr said she's interested in meeting with small investors to channel more support to small and medium enterprises. Investors asked the minister to offer more incentives and pass new legislation to improve the business environment, as the government bears a heavy burden which investors could ease if the path is paved for them to contribute to the state's development. Ministry of Investment and International Cooperation arranged with the investors to form a committee to commune with the business community within a short time. Meanwhile, the Russian Upper House Speaker Valentina Matviyenko said Moscow would seek to greatly facilitate the drafting of a free trade agreement between the Russian-led Eurasian Economic Union, the EAEU, and Egypt. She held talks with President Sisi, Parliament Speaker Ali Abdel, Prime Minister Sharif Ismail and top officials. The meetings focused on bilateral, regional and global issues, including parliamentary cooperation and the fight against terrorism. Matviyenko also said Moscow is interested in the successful construction of the Daba nuclear power plant in Egypt's north. The chairwoman of the Russian Federation Council said Egypt had met 90% of the required procedures to resume the Russian flights to Egypt, adding that Russian and Egyptian aviation authorities had done colossal work to implement the new security measures at Egypt's airports, but only 4 items remain before the plan is fully completed.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, starting off our discussion now. Dr. Shafei, with all the efforts that we've been seeing by the Egyptian government, manifested by the trips and the agreements of Dr. Sahar Nasr, now we seem to have a lot of objectives going down with the unemployment rate, attracting foreign investors, helping the local investors here in Egypt. How far do you think that with all these efforts being exerted, how much are we solving the problem? Are we on the right track? Is there still a lot more to be done? Are we not achieving as much as we should be achieving in the current period?
Well, I think the connections Dr. Sahar making with the foreign counterpart is very essential and useful. She has to do it. Mm-hmm. We have to listen to them and to find out why the investment is not as promising as it should be. Mm-hmm. Of course, making an agreement and connections and listening to the other party is not the whole story. There are a big part of it. It is in our part, pause with the officials, the government, how to make it easy for the investors, the bureaucracy, and how we can help the investors. I think we identify the problems of the investors. Egypt has a very promising market, and this is attract any international investor. Also, the amount of profit, or percentage of the profit any investor, foreign investor making in Egypt is really attracting that investors to come here. So we have a lot of factors to attract foreign investors to Egypt. Except after they start in operations, they're facing some problems. Most of these problems, it is in the initial part when they really asking for the license or the land or transferring their profits and some legal parts as well. If we resolve this, and we resolve it not on the media, resolve it on the ground, resolve it really, I think you will see a completely different picture in the investment, because I believe personally Egypt is a very promising, attractive place for anybody to invest.
Yes, definitely. Well, Mr. Nawwara, we keep talking about solving these problems, and we keep talking about the infamous problem of the investment law and attracting the foreign investor. Now, we've been talking about this problem for many years. Now, why is there nothing really on the ground being done about it? Why do we still have this problem standing up until now? We thought that maybe when we have a parliament, we'll be able to solve it. We'll find a constitutional way to have a proper investment law that would guarantee the rights of the foreign investor as well as Egypt. Why is that still a problem? Why are we not focusing on that to start with, to be able to have some sort of a cornerstone of attraction for foreign investors?
To be honest with you, I think we have to face the truth that we have a very dysfunctional governmental structure and apparatus. I'm not here talking about the government as in terms of cabinet, but I mean that inside each ministry, inside each authority, there are many layers and very intricate relationship and power struggle and arrangements and many, let's say, rules which are in play that will surprise you, that the minister, very often the minister is powerless in facing or changing this. And if the minister dares to change some of these corrupt structures, and corrupt, I don't mean only corrupt in the sense of embezzling money, but it's corrupt in the sense that it looks like almost like a small estate, izba. You know, each one having his own turf, and he's appointing or promoting his relatives to come and work here, and the people who are loyal to him. So it is inside, it's a number of turfs, and this happened over 60 years. So you're talking that we have a parliament a year ago. The parliament, I don't think that they have that kind of vision, and nor does anyone in the country have that kind of authority to end this bureaucracy. What it needs really, it needs a very deep process of thinking how we can entangle that. Now we have maybe one ministry which is dedicated to administrative reform or administrative development, but the whole thing is really a huge mess that was accumulated over almost 60 or 70 or even more years, with many contradicting laws, with many outdated rules and outdated way of thinking, outdated culture. And add to that the incompetent bureaucrats who also, in their interest, they want to protect their turfs, and they want to, the whole thing look like a temple. You know, they are the only priests, monks who control the gates to this. So you try, the minister comes and tries to fix this, and very soon his, you know, the complaints that he is corrupt, and this happened with many ministers. So we really need to have a deep look, because it's not going to work that we change ministers. The ministers very often is powerless to change the situation. We need to change the internal structures, even if we have to create parallel ministries, as it happened during Dr. Ahmed Nazif. At one point, you start to find the new cadre inside the ministry and the old cadre, and there was a transfer of power gradually from the old cadre to the new cadre. But I don't think we are, I don't know if we're following this now, but we really need a deep thought and a deep process, and coming out, you know, from the top leadership in the country, realizing that this is our biggest problem. Anybody who is trying to get a license in Egypt is forced to go to the parallel state. He's forced to go under the table. He's forced, يمشي حاله, you know, he's trying to get things done in some crooked way. But this doesn't work with investors. Investors coming from overseas, they have their option in front of them. They can go to Jabal Ali or here or there and get their license in 5 minutes. Everything, expensive or cheap, but everything is outlined, is well known, is well documented. You can know it beforehand and make your plans and make your cost analysis before coming in here. But you come in here and then you find this mess, this jungle. Then you, if one person makes a mistake and come, or one company, soon will be known with other companies that, you know, that they had this experience, and then it's a big mess.
Yes. Well, Dr. Shafei, we understand that there is a problem with the investment law and attracting foreign investors. And that has really been highlighted for the past few years, especially after the 2011 revolution. But what about before that? Decades ago, how have we been attracting foreign investors coming to Egypt? How did foreign investors come to Egypt and invest in the country? We keep saying that Egypt is a very attractive prospect for a foreign investor. How was that working before we actually shed light or really opened our eyes on the investment law and the problems accompanied with it? And why are we not solving it up until now, and even finding it much harder to attract foreign investors as opposed to decades earlier?
I think it's a culture of Egypt. I will continue what Mr. Nawwara was saying. It is a problem of the personnel. It's not the law. I don't think we have a bad law, investment law. A few points, if you can change it, it will be perfect. You don't need to have a new law. And but do we really have the intention to make an attractive new law? You know, or we just want to talk about it in the media and everybody come and analyze it and explain here, and somebody criticizes, and wasting a lot of time, a lot of years for nothing. Why Egypt is attractive? Location-wise, we have a genius locations. Weather-wise, we have a perfect weather. We have one of the biggest markets, consumption markets in Africa and the Middle East. Okay, both. Even the Middle East, with all the money they have, our markets consume more products. Any producer, any manufacturer, love to have something in this country. You have a labor which supposedly it is very inexpensive. I wouldn't say cheap, but if you can train them to be productive. Not the way it is, okay, because the calculation is productivity in the end, not just the price, how much you pay per hour or per day. You have actually a lot of Egyptians who studied management, but maybe they don't have the practice. With some kind of tailoring here and there, some training, you can really change the picture. What we have to do, we have to work very hard on the 90 million Egyptians, not in anything else. If you can develop and change the old culture of bureaucracy, corruptions, all the ethics which is not there anymore, and try to build it, accumulate year by after year, then you are in the right path. But you can do anything you want, and you can really inject billions and trillions of dollars in this country with the same personnel. It's not going to be successful in the end, because our people, our personnel, our brains are the one who making the success or making the failures. So we have to work hard in this area before anything else.
Well, Mr. Nawwara, if we seem to have these sort of problems on different levels within a governmental institution, or because of a certain law that we have, is there a way out of it, or a way around it, which is through the government-to-government economic agreements? Is that one way that we actually could maximize and use to the full potential government-to-government agreements and memorandums of understanding, so we could bypass some of these, if not all, but at least some of these obstacles and hard channels?
I'm afraid not. I think although government-to-government agreements are important, and they do encourage and provide incentives for business people, and at least bring them and sponsor their meetings with their counterparts and so on. All these trade missions are nice, but we really need to do our homework. We have our home is full of spider webs. It's full of rats. It's full of snakes. We really need to start looking inside our home and redesign the process. There is something called process engineering. It looks at how things move, how decisions are made, how licenses are obtained, all these things, and lots of calculations, and you start comparing with other countries. It takes certain amount of time and certain amount of money to obtain a license to build, for example, something, or to start a factory, or to do this or to do that. And unfortunately, because of this idea of parallel state, many things have been done in the wrong way. And that's how local business survive. The local business survive that they are not doing things by the book, but there is an acceptance, even at the law enforcement community, that things don't have to be done by the book. The problem is with this culture that foreign investors cannot survive with this culture. They don't have that kind of sense. They don't have that kind of complex understanding. For example, the traffic. The traffic, there are laws, the traffic you have to follow. But here in Egypt, you find that, you're almost touching the other car and doing. So there is too complex for anyone coming from outside that culture to operate in that jungle. And the traffic situation and the pavement situation and the way that we deal with this, public space and public common space between us as Egyptians, as citizens, we have, due to many mistakes and many accumulated problems, we have distorted these relationships. So we really need to go back and look at these relationships and say, we're here today, we're supposed to be here in 2 or 3 years' time, and this is a transition path. We have to fix these processes, we have to fix these structures, we have maybe to give some severance, generous severance allowance to some of these government employees, but we need to reduce the people, because sometimes more people doing the job means the job is not done, because it's just too many people. In some instances, I remember Hernando de Soto in one of his book, I think it was Mystery of Capital, he had a number of case studies in Egypt. In some things he counted 77 steps. You have to go through 77 procedures in order to obtain a license for something, and he calculated it takes 14 years to complete that. And he compared with some other countries which take maybe a few months or few days, and now we hear of countries where you can do things in a few minutes. So we need to look at these processes and realize these are not part of the Quran or any religious scripture. These are made by men. It's been distorted by layers of bureaucracy. It's been distorted by time and by negligence and by good intentions and bad intentions, whatever. You know, sometimes it was good intentions, good intention of control. We want to control everything. But this idea of controlling everything is a fallacy, because you cannot control everything, so you end up putting many rules inside, even outside the legislation, more rules than the legislations, but you end up unable to implement all these rules, so you lose control completely. So this idea of controlling, we want, you know, these 10 guys to sign this before somebody does this. At the end of the day, the end is bribery, the end is corruption, the end that people will go around these rules because they don't work.
Yes. Well, Doctor, now, away from looking at the details, looking at the big picture, we seem to have a certain policy. We understand that in order to help finance your own economy, you need to produce enough to generate a lot of finances to spread around different sectors. Now, we've been doing a lot of borrowing, and we've been getting a lot of grants from different countries, and we've been getting lots of loans from different countries or different financial institutions locally or internationally or regionally. We thought that this was the way, up until we need this sort of cash injection to jumpstart our economy and our production. But this has been going on for quite a few years now. Is that a good thing right now? Are we past the timing when we should have stopped borrowing and receiving grants and financial help from other countries? Should we now be already self-sufficient? How long should that process be, and is it right at this point in time?
If you want to describe really the position of the economy in Egypt, it's like an ill person, and if you don't really put him in the hospital for a while until he get a little decent, not even healthy, he's not going to continue. So is borrowing is a good thing? The answer definitely, quick answer, no. But it is essential for Egypt. You don't have other choices, because the accumulations of the economy recessions all the years until you reach at this point, you don't have other choices except to borrow. Let's describe the situation here. Only a couple of years ago, Egypt used to import goods for roughly 80 billion US dollar. Export goods for 25 maximum. All of a sudden, through a political or security reason, no tourism, so no income from the foreign currencies. Even oil, we've been living in good promotion from the government that Egypt have a lot of revenue from the oil. All of a sudden, we're importing oils, and we're paying a lot of money for it. As a matter of fact, we're importing gas, not just oil. Even the Egyptians, who used to transfer a lot of currencies from abroad, it declined for a few years. So the gap between the needs for the hard currency and the revenues you got, which is Mizan al-Madfu'at, it was very negative. You don't have other choices except to borrow to close that gap. I'm not talking even about the budget deficits and all of this. If we don't resolve the main problem, we will continue doing this. Fortunately, when they devaluate the currency, the cost, the inflations, of course, started to be very high, and the cost of goods start to be very hard on the purchasing power. So voluntarily, most of the people start to decline from consuming some items. They don't have other choices because the income did not increase. So we had a good news last month that importations has declined by 25%. And exportation has increased by 25%. So this means we are in the right directions. Regardless who did it, it just happened, but this is what we have. Okay. We have to work in all the other angles.
Yes.
Of course, we have to rebuild the tourism and make our country secure again to attract more tourism. We have to give the Egyptians working abroad a confidence on their country. We have to be very transparent. We have to find a good way to attract them to transfer their money instead of invest it abroad. I'm talking about the deposits. But all of that is not enough. This country has to replace importations by production. Of course, not 100%, but at least we can have the same number, equal, export and import. How you do that? By investment. Investment mainly in two areas. You have to start with productions and then services.
Yes.
When you open a restaurant or you open any services, hotels, this is services, okay? Regardless if you're attracting hard currencies from the hotel. So we have to focus on productions. That means factory or industry and agriculture. Those are the two areas will produce income, will increase the GDP of Egypt, and will offer a lot of opportunity for unemployments to work and earn money and spend money and make a healthy economy in the end. They calculated the gap and they calculated the amount of money you need to invest. It was no way the Egyptian can do it alone because the number is very big. So we have to attract the foreign investment, not only because of the fund, which is a very important factor, but also because of the know-how. If you want to really go fast and try to really match or speed up to catch whatever happened in Europe and the United States, you have to use the technology. We don't have a technology.
Yes.
We have to attract the foreign investors to bring know-how, technology, and fund. The three things. As long as we decided, okay, that's what we need, we have to talk to these people and listen to them what you need to bring your money here, to bring your know-how here, to bring your technology here. Let's forget this proudness of us from the officials, and we know everything, who are more intelligent and they just come to take our money. This is not true. Of course they have to make a profit, but in the same time they want the economy to go. It's a cycle, the economy. So I think if we identify the targets, which we did, it is very simple to make the action. And the action, I agree with Mr. Nawwara, we have to start something new. I think it's like, somebody with a lot of problems. You need to start something, a parallel line. Maybe this is at work. Maybe we establish a new sector only for the foreign investor. And make it simple and straight, and the judgment will be is the achievement, nothing else. Okay, let's forget about the media and all these nice talks. We have to calculate the amount of investment, the revenue of each investment, the number of employees they already there.
Yes. Well, Mr. Nawwara, do you feel that through these tough times that we've been through economically, with the high inflation, with lifting of some of the subsidies, with the devaluation of the Egyptian pound against the American dollar, do you feel that as a country, as a society, we have been producing a little bit more? Is the Egyptian now a wiser consumer, really paying attention to the spending habits and the consumption habits in general? Are we moving in the right direction? Do you feel that on the ground or not?
I agree with Dr. Shafei that one of the best things that happened was the devaluation of the Egyptian pound. I think it's 22 years too late. I think that the devaluation should have started with the signing of the GATT in 1995, because every year we started lowering the tariffs, which meant, you know, either we improve our competitiveness or we lower our currency, which didn't happen. So we had an accumulated effect. I cannot say that the consumer is much wiser. I say that by devaluating the pound, or rather leaving the pound to the natural forces, that the nature is wiser. Leaving things to nature is wiser. The problem was not the consumer was stupid. No, the consumer was very smart. He found a cheaper product from abroad than the one manufactured at home. And it happened that the one manufactured at home actually is the same brand, but it's manufactured at home. So if it's cheaper or equal price or slightly more expensive, of course you would buy the one made in the original factory. So the consumer acted this way, not because the consumer was stupid, but the consumer is always smart. The consumer always is seeking his or her best interest and his family's interest. But the government refused to put the Egyptian pound over 22 years. Of course, it made a number of corrections, and every time it made the correction, things improved. When it made the correction in 2003, things improved. When it made the correction later, things improved. Every time it becomes too proud to say, no, the Egyptian pound we have to support it because of some, you know, some myths and some misguided ideas.
Yes.
What happened is you are putting obstacles in front of nature, so you are artificially supporting the foreign manufacturer, and in fact fighting and combating the local manufacturer. So more and more it becomes more and more cheaper and easier to bring imported products, and becomes your own production becomes less and less competitive. And at one point you start using the income from tourism, or the income or the transfers from Egyptians working abroad, but you realize that this is production which is not done in this country or this time. Tourists are coming because of production which happened 5,000 years ago. Because people are working. So what about the people who are living here today? Where is their production? So in fact you are just buying time and buying a level of living which is unaffordable, which is unrealistic. And you're killing your own industry, and you're using the tourism revenues and the transfers revenues in order to balance the foreign exchange account on the expense of your own competitiveness. So this is what has been done for a number of years. So now that this has been reversed, and severely reversed, almost, if you measure from 2011 or 2010 to today, you're talking more than 350% increase. But again, I would say it's healthy. This is the right direction, but I agree with Dr. Shafei. It's not enough on its own. We need to start looking at things. Why are Egyptians investing so much in real estate? You go to all of these new cities and North Coast and here, and you find empty flats, concrete. It's not utilized in service. It's not rented, for example. So if it's rented, it will produce, you know, it will add to the GDP. No, it is actually a dead asset, which is not used by any. So why Egyptians are investing so much in this? We have to start thinking, why are they doing that? And start putting incentives for them to maybe invest in manufacturing, in funds dedicated to manufacturing, to innovation, to ICT. We have so many advantages in this country, but when you have the wrong rules, you distort the game, you distort the behavior. People, as I said, people will go and buy the other product because it's cheaper in their eyes, it has better value. So now we have to start thinking, how can we make investment in real estate less attractive and investment in manufacturing more attractive. I think that if you count all these investments in real estate, you realize that it's in trillions of dollars by Egyptians. So Egyptians, they do have the money. But for some reason, because of certain rules or incentives or disincentives, they are putting their money in cement and concrete because they see that's increasing in capital gains, but it doesn't produce any revenue or productivity. We have to think, how can we shift that behavior?
Yes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's not just about attracting foreign investors. Also, it is about the local manufacturers and the local investors here. Now, Germany has offered Egypt hundreds of millions of dollars. Some say it's 250, some say it's 500, in order to help the developmental projects here in Egypt, and a strong emphasis on the small and medium-sized businesses. Let's check out this report and we'll be right back.
Germany has offered Egypt $500 million to support its economic program and medium-sized and small businesses. Ministry of Investment and International Cooperation said the two sides had agreed that Germany would provide Egypt with $250 million to support the economic program and another $250 million to support several other sectors, including micro-enterprises and small and medium-sized enterprises. The support will come in the form of grants and concessional funds. The German offer came during a visit to Egypt by the German Chancellor Angela Merkel, who met with President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, Prime Minister Sharif Ismail, Grand Imam of Al-Azhar Ahmed al-Tayyib, as well as His Holiness Pope Tawadros II. Minister of Investment and International Cooperation Sahar Nasr said her ministry and the German government did not set a date for Egypt to receive the financing of the $500 million. She added she'd held meetings with Cypriot investors and officials about investment opportunities in the Suez Canal area during a visit to Cyprus. However, according to sources, the ministry is scheduled to pay a visit to the UAE as the next destination of its foreign tour. Furthermore, the minister witnessed the signing of a memorandum of understanding between Egyptian Businessmen Association and the Cypriot Chamber of Trade and Industry that aims at intensifying cooperation between both parties.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Dr. Shafei, looking at these hundreds of dollars, 250, 500, from Germany to Egypt, with a strong emphasis on small and medium-sized businesses. Now, first of all, do you feel that we've always been talking and debating about attracting the foreign investors? How much have we been doing to encourage local investors? How much have we been doing to actually encourage all the factories already on the ground to produce at 100% full capacity? How much have we been doing to encourage the young entrepreneurs to actually take loans from the banks, go and risk a business idea or start a small and medium-sized businesses? How much has been done?
Quick, straight answer, we are not attracting. Actually, we discourage the local investors, and I will talk about the medium and small later after that, which we, again, discourage them. Why are we discouraging them? Because we have thousands of factories are closed, thousands of farms, no laborers, and they already leave it because licenses, utilities, prices or availability, insecurity in some of the farms in the desert, a lot of causes. And if you read in the media or you listen to the media, everybody is talking about helping and producing, but on the ground, nobody helping. This 3,000 or 4,000 factories are already closed for 3 or 4 years. Before you really attract the foreign investors, why you are not sitting with these people and try to put these factories in business again?
Why are we not?
Because every one of those, again, we don't have the system, okay? Every one of them has a different problems. Maybe very few is the finance, by the way. It's not all finance. But there are a lot of problems. So you need some kind of a consultant who are expert in this area to sit with each one, analyze it, come with recommendations, and then the government, like, you know, like incubators, trying to help them until they are running, because everybody will help. If the factory will work, will hire people, it will increase the GDP, they will pay taxes, and maybe they will export. So it's all benefits. Don't leave it closed. Find a way to let it run again. You know, the investors, the local investor already put all the real estates, they even purchase the equipment,
machines.
And they even have a management in a lot of cases, and they tried. Maybe they lacking the know-how. Okay, if they lacking the know-how or a management ability, maybe the consultant can help for getting a professional management to run this factory. I think the owner would be very happy, because instead of really paying or being in debts, he will be in credits all of a sudden. So this is one thing. When we talk about small and medium business, I always take China as an example. I've been in China in the 70s, and I've been in China now. And it is a miracle what they did. Okay, but they did because of the system and the people, not because of anything else. Yes. Okay, can you believe that China, second powerful economy in the world, 40% of the GDP coming from small and medium price enterprise, 50% export from the small and the medium price, 50%. Germany, if you take an example, Japan, even Turkey, then our next. We've been talking about this for years. Do we really have a solid figures or percentage for GDP from the small and the medium prices? The actual is no. Most of the successful small and medium prices here are the shadow economy. They are not even announcing, and nobody knows anything about it, so they are not in the budget. But if you really want to figure, I think it's less than 5%. I think you should reach 25% of the GDP from the small and the medium price very quickly in a few years. Okay? How we can do that? Not only concentrating, I think the decisions from the president about cutting the interest to 5%, it was the life kiss. Okay? And because it was silly to give these young people who has no experience 12% and 15% interest. So now it's feasible. Okay? But is that enough? The answer is no. You still need the know-how. Because these young persons, this new entrepreneur doesn't know the business, so you have to select the right people, you have to train them, you have maybe to give them a certificate to be able to start the business. And then in the business you have accounting and you have legal affairs, and of course you have quality control and you have marketing. You have to really again incubate these people all the way until they produce for 1 or 2 years, until you make sure it's like a baby, until they make sure they are okay, they are successful, they can stand by themselves, then you leave them. Remember, I don't want to mention names, but one of the 2 biggest companies in Egypt, they start a few years ago without the help of the government as a very small, tiny business. They are international now.
Well, Mr. Nawwara, if we are looking at this from a political point of view, now a lot of people say 250, even $500 million for developmental projects and the small and medium-sized enterprises is not really a big sum. However, it is some sort of a gesture, a political gesture of support by Germany to Egypt. Now, we've seen this maybe not just from Germany, but from other countries as well. Do you feel that there is a strong relation between how the Egyptian economy is going right now, how it is right now, and where it is going as a result of the political circumstances and the political developments Egypt is a part of?
I think that the real benefit in this $500 million or 500 million euros is more symbolic, and it's good perhaps for, again, to help more stabilize the Egyptian pound as a foreign currency source. That's all. But we don't lack the money. We have tons of money. And if you don't believe that, just go and visit, you know, the mansions and the huge compounds around Cairo, and stretching 400 kilometers on the north coast, or stretching several hundred kilometers on the east coast. So we don't lack the money. We have a lot of money, but it's just this money for some reason has been directed and invested in a capital gain business which is not productive, unfortunately. So now we have to figure out how can we detour these investments into something productive, such as small and medium enterprises, such as innovations, such as like incubators, such as the factories, consolidating production base, merging of smaller companies to form, you know, larger companies, things like that. We need to have some fund dedicated to supporting worthy, I'm not saying giving, you know, supporting worthy and competitive industries which just needed the right, for example, the right exchange rate. Some of these factories, as you say, they shut down because we had the wrong exchange rate, because it was cheaper from here or there, because the government was subsidizing the Chinese product by keeping a low dollar. So some of them, they shut down because of wrong exchange rate. So now that we have a very competitive Egyptian pound, it means that with a little bit of push and maybe rearrange loans or rescheduling some of their payments, giving them, you know, maybe technical support, or helping them one way or another, giving them a short route also to importing raw material. Because once you start putting this umbrella of, you know, because you don't want to acknowledge the devaluation at 6 months ago, so you put an umbrella to combat imports. So the first one to suffer is the manufacturer who needs to import in order to manufacture. So he's shut down because he can't find raw material or spare parts or parts to assemble, because some of these factories are just assemble, you know, parts. So we have to realize that we are, as Egyptians, we had the very bad habits of investing into non-productive dead assets, such as real estate, which we don't need, which we're not living in. I'm not saying that, you know, I'm not discouraging people to build a house to live in, but everyone having like 5 or 6 houses, for my children, for my grandchildren, for the summer and for the winter and for the spring, house for each occasion. You know, you can't, and for this for weekend, you can't do that. You know, we're rich, but we're not that rich to start to continue acting foolishly. Now we have to think, how can we help our country by investing into productive sectors, agriculture, manufacturing, services which can be exported, such as, for example, medical services, which we've been hearing in the last few days, promoting medical tourism and things like ICT, things like contracting. You know, we have to if we're so clever in building it, we have to go maybe and build somewhere else for others, maybe in Africa, maybe other places. But we need to find productive industries and endeavors to invest in.
Well, Dr. Shafei, now, Mr. Nawwara and yourself, you both emphasized the importance of investing in small and medium enterprises, and even the Central Bank of Egypt has allocated £200 billion for these small and medium businesses. Now, this is a serious amount of money for this sector. Now, do you feel that with this amount of money, it is being allocated or directed at the right places? Do we have so much money but not really taking chances on new business ideas or young entrepreneurs? Do you feel that still the money is there, but we still need the know-how, we still need the training to get the certificates, as you've mentioned, for instance? Do you feel that we still have a long way to go in actually achieving or fulfilling the potential of these enterprises?
I think to answer your question very quickly, what's been used from the 200 billion, less than 5%. That's in 1 year. So I think this is answer you. Why? As we mentioned, you have to establish the right environment to create entrepreneur here first.
Yes.
Because if we don't have that personnel, you don't have something to start.
Yes.
Then you have to establish a lot of institutes or consultant or whatever to train these people to the basics how to make business.
Yes.
And then we have to have the right process, including the paper and the regulations to borrow money and all of this. I think...
And exit strategies.
And exit if he doesn't like it.
If you fail, you don't go to jail.
Yes.
You know, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Who will start something if you fail, you go to jail.
Yes, definitely.
And I think at least we are brainstorm these problems now. Everybody start to talk about it loud and clear.
Yes.
We hope it will be fixed because we have a lot. I'm insisting we have a lot of potential.
Yes.
And if we really we put ourselves on the right road,
Yes.
things will be completely different in Egypt.
Yes, hopefully. Well, ladies and gentlemen, still, obviously, it goes back to a lot of work that needs to be done by all of us here in Egypt to help boost the Egyptian economy. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this edition of the Daily Debate. But before we go, I'd like to thank our very distinguished guest, Dr. Hassan Shafei, the chairman of the Egyptian-Romanian Business Council. I'd also like to thank very much Mr. Wael Nawwara, the political analyst. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned for more coming up on Nile International. I'm Henny Saif. Thank you for joining us.